over to slicers and filters. So I don't need this again. Let me delete this pivot table. So back to this pivot table. Now on this pivot table, I'm going to remove the category, sorry, the country from the columns. So I just have sales by category. Okay. Now, what if this is the only thing you want to see? Okay, but you want to be able to select which country you want to view. So it is showing the current total sales for each product category. But what if I also want to see for only Germany? Okay, I don't want to put country in columns and it will show Germany, Poland, USA. No, I want it that, oh, in this same visual or in this same pivot chart, it will just change the sales amount to the sales amount for Germany only.
Endeavor to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thank you.
So what I will do is I'm going to include a filter or a slicer. So filters and slicers are the same thing. They filter your data, or they allow you to filter your data. Okay, but they are used in different ways. Now, a filter is part of your pivot table. If you use filter here, it is part of your pivot table. Okay, if I want to filter by country, I will drag country to the filters area here. And you will see that it pushes this down and it adds something up here. It puts country all. So this is the filter that will allow me to filter by country for this particular, what is it called? Pivot table. When we pray. Do you see that? Okay, so if I want to see for only maybe USA now, I'll come to this filter, click here, and I will click select multiple items. Once you tick the box, select multiple items, then you select only USA and you click OK. So you see that it's saying country USA. So in USA, this is how much we are making for each product category. Can you see that? Okay. So in USA, this is how much I'm making for each product category. You can come here again. Okay, I want to see for Poland now. Okay. It shows you for Poland. It changes these figures. So this is for Poland. Okay. Now, if I insert another pivot table here, let me insert another pivot table. And let's look at the sales by segments, segments to rows, and then sales to values. Okay, so now we have our sum of sales, total sales by customer segment. Okay, so I want to see how the customer segment is performing in each country. Okay, so can I come here? Let me try filtering and say, okay, I want to filter to show for Germany. If I click Germany, I click OK. Only this pivot table values change. The one on this place does not change. Because this filter is only filtering this pivot table. This filter is for only this pivot table. I cannot connect a filter on a pivot table to another pivot table. Okay, so the best I can do is on this pivot table, I have to include a filter for this one as well. I will now drag country again to filters for this pivot table. So for this pivot table, I can now begin to view. Okay, I want to view only Germany. I click Germany and click OK. Do you see that? That is when it will change. Okay, I want to see for Poland. I like having this box so that it doesn't confuse people. I want to see for Poland. I click OK. So here I'm viewing for Germany. Here I'm viewing for Poland. But the thing about this technique now is that if you're now building a dashboard, okay, or you want a scenario where you just want one filter to be able to control the two pivot tables, what do you do? Okay, it means that you won't be using a filter because filter affects only the particular pivot table on which it is used. But slicer can affect multiple pivot tables. So I'm going to change. So I'm going to change the filter here. I'll select all. Okay. Same thing here. I'll select all. Good. So I will remove the filters now. Same thing for this one. I'll remove the country filters. Okay. Now, pivot table 2, pivot table 4. Let me rename them. Okay. I'll rename this as test 1. Okay. And then this second one, I'll rename the second one as test 2. Okay. So now we're going to insert a slicer. Select any of the pivot table. In this case, now I'm selecting pivot table 1, and I will click on my pivot table analyze. So now on test 1, okay, this pivot table, I'm going to come to my pivot table analyze. I hope that's taken intelligence. I'm going to come to my pivot table analyze and then insert slicer. Okay, click insert slicer. And I will insert slicer based on my country. Select country and click OK. Now, currently, all the countries are available. All the countries are selected. Okay. But if I select Germany, see what happens on this pivot table. When I select Germany, see how the values here change. So analgesics is bringing in $130,000 from Germany. If I select USA, do you see that? $63,000. If I select Poland, do you see that? $20,000. Can you see? Okay. But this second pivot table is not changing yet. So let me clear filter first. Click on this icon to clear filter. Good. Now, your slicer can be connected to as many pivot tables as you like. What you will do is right-click the country, just right-click the heading of the slicer, and you will see report connections. Report connections. So click on report connections and need to expand this. Now, here you see I have plenty pivot tables. There are some pivot tables I've not renamed here. You can see on my pivot tables, top states performance, bottom product sales, quantity products, sales by product, and so on and so forth. Okay, but you can see that it's telling you that only this one is ticked, which is test 1. Remember, we named this pivot table test 1. So this slicer that we inserted, okay, is connected to test 1. That's the reason why when you click something on the slicer, only what you have in test one will change. So if I want to connect it to other pivot tables as well, I will now come here and tick the pivot tables I want to connect to. So let's connect it to test 2 as well. Select test 2. Select test 2 and click OK. Now, when I click Germany, you see that the 2 pivot tables will change. Germany. Do you see that? Poland. You see how the values are changing? USA. You see how the values are changing? Okay. So this is a slicer. Now, you can insert a slicer and use your years or your dates on it. Let me show you a difference. If I right click or just click any pivot table, come to my pivot table analyze and insert slicer. Now let's insert slicer. I'll scroll down. I think I have years. Good. I'll select years. Select years and click OK. It shows me 2020, 2021, and then 2 unnecessary data don't have any meaning in this data. Because if I click it, it won't return any data. You can see. Remember, this slide that I just inserted is connected to this pivot table until I connect it to another pivot table. So if I click this, it doesn't happen. If I click this as well, there's no data there. So it's not even meant to appear. If I click 2020, I'm good. If I click 2021, I'm good. Did you see that? But let me delete this slide, this slicer. The best way to insert slicer when you're working with years. The best way to insert slicer, okay, when you're working with years is to simply come to your pivot table analyze and you insert a timeline. Okay. You insert a timeline. So I'll click timeline. And timeline works with dates. So I'll click dates and I'll click OK. So you see now that the timeline shows perfectly 2020, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August to 2021. So all those unnecessary dates are not here. Do you see that? So if it's 2020, let's see 2020 June. I select June only in 2020. It filters this data. If I select August 2020, the data changes as well. Do you see that?
Endeavor to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thank you. See you in our next class.